Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming back. I would like to talk about the solvent inhalant abuse, which represents a serious and dangerous global problem today, worldwide, and it is considered one of the major hazards due to drug or substance abuse. It is widespread all over the world with different patterns and attitudes and motives everywhere. Although there have been some research going on maybe through the last 10 years or 2 decades, still although it is the most dangerous kind of abuse, it is the least studied kind. So what are the inhalants? As we all know, inhalants are breathable vapors or gases that produce psychoactive effects when abused. They include volatile organic solvents, fuel gases, nitrites, and anesthetic gases. Many of them actually are household products which are being used by anyone, and like the volatile solvents and the gases as the glue, the paint thinner, the gasoline, the gas lighters, the nail polish remover, and the correction fluid. The aerosols such as the hairsprays and many of the products that are being sold as aerosols. Anesthetics, of course, like nitrous oxide and ether, which are sometimes being abused by anesthetists, or at least they get a part of their toxic action in the theater. Nitrites like amyl, butyl, and isobutyl nitrites, which are used as room odorizers to make good odor in rooms. Something wrong here?
This one also here.
Oh, this one? Okay. Something. Is it hung or something? Bad battery maybe?
Then this one, this should work.
It's the battery in the laptop.
Battery in the laptop.
Battery also, laptop also is low.
That works. Let's put
In most countries, inhalants are the cheap, toxic, addicting substances of the poor. That's why they are not very much studied, because these are poor addicts. They can't afford to be treated. Nobody cares about them. Most of them are street children in many countries. So nobody cares. Most common among innocent, neglected street children everywhere, all over the world, with some exceptions where it is more common among school students. Like in the United States, the students, high school students, and maybe younger students and adolescents abuse many other substances that are inhalants. Why are inhalants the most dangerous substances? They are readily available and easily obtained, easily accessible. They are easily concealed. Sometimes nobody can discover that this person. They are very cheap. They are very popular among the adolescents, and they are more common among adolescents and children, different age and different class groups. Also, they are not illegal. I mean, there is no legislation against the misuse or abuse of solvent inhalants. And they are also a stepping stone to other more serious kinds of abuse. Most of these guys start with glue or with any other inhalant, and they end up to be addicting cocaine, heroin, if they can afford it, by stealing, by begging, by any other means. At least it is a stepping stone. First step after this is the smoking, and then to other things. They are extremely toxic. They show severe withdrawal symptoms, and there are no available treatment methods because no much research was done on treating these boys. Detoxification is very difficult, and relapses are very high. It is, as I said, a worldwide problem, global problem. Some countries studied it very well, some didn't study it at all. Some studies in the literature are present, but they don't represent valid figures which could be relied on. According to the World Drug Report in 52 in 2005, the North America has the highest rate of inhalant treatment, admissions about 18%. Eastern Europe is 5%, Africa and South America 4%, Australia, New Zealand, and Asia 2%, Western Europe 1%. Some studies in USA said that there are 22 million young adolescents reported history of volatile solvent inhalation, or volatile solvent misuse, as they call it. Sometimes they call it solvent misuse, sometimes solvent inhalant misuse, sometimes volatile solvent misuse. In South America, the lifetime prevalence ranges from 2.7 in Paraguay, 16.5% in Brazil, and it is more prevalence among street children and high school students. In Mexico, it is about 1%. In Upper Egypt, in a study we have done, 91% of the street children reported misuse of solvent inhalants, especially glue, which is a product used for commercial purposes as an adhesive and glue. In Colombia, school children reported, 10% of them reported exposure opportunity, 3% past year use, 7 to 5% positive volatile solvent misuse intentions. In Eastern Slovakia, I will not go through all countries. In Israel, past months use reported by 7.5% of school students aged 12 to 18, with illicit drug use, together with illicit drug use, smoking, internet gambling, drinking, and school truancy. In India, also, a whitener fluid containing toluene was being misused among homeless children. The mean age of addicts was like 12.8 years. Most children use other substances together with the solvent, like tobacco, alcohol, cannabis, heroin, and so on. Again, it's not in the pointer. Yeah. In Nigeria, there are some serious studies reporting lifetime use of 26% of adolescents, using past year by 13%, using past months by 20% of children. In South Africa, there were also some good, valid studies. Between these actual studies, the gender difference even, and it was 13% for males and 5% for females, and it is known in many countries that it is male type of addiction. Not much females misuse these substances. In Japan also there are some reports, but some people consider it underestimate. But it is more among school absent or dropouts students, and and they say that non-users have more satisfying school and family lives than solvent users. Substances misused differ in different countries, although some are very common in both developed and developing other countries. In developed countries, shoe polish, toluene, amyl nitrite, correction fluid, glue, gasoline, halothane, spray paints, nitrous oxide, propane, and the other aerosol sprays. In other countries, it is almost everything: gasoline, petrol, toluene, glue, car exhaust sometimes, kerosene, paint thinner, lighter fluid, sprays, ether, chloroform, and nitrous oxide. Anything that has vapors could be misused by these people. Most common motives and perceptions in different countries. Actually, I summarized all of them in 2 slides, but in different countries there are some differences according to the social and economic status of the country. So in many countries, actually in all countries, young individuals tend to use it because it is not illegal. Those actually were answers of the addicts. Why do you use solvent inhalants? Some said that because it is not illegal. Some say that it does not subject abusers to arrest by the police. It is cheap and easily available. They use it to attain social freedom, to break social barriers or norms, to improve abusers' self-esteem, and some reported that they make them forget their problems, and some use them for experimenting purposes. Some abusers consider it as a proof of masculinity. Some say that it increased their activity level, enhances their physical strength, decreases shyness, intentional decreased appetite, for sleep induction, to feel good, and to get high, and numbing of physical and physiological pain. And many of these actually are being abused during their work. They like cheap labor. In many countries they use them as cheap labor, and they are being abused by the owners or by their employers, and they use it to get high and to feel numbing of physical and psychological pain. Some use it because they feel dreamy and lighthearted, to overcome sadness and negative feelings. Some use it to avoid withdrawal reactions. Some use it to enjoy the sweet taste and the fruit smell, this particularly with the aerosols. Usually after inhalation, those substances are very lipid soluble, so there is very rapid absorption, penetration of the blood-brain barrier into the brain directly and to many other tissues. That's why so there is an instant rush, there is euphoria, there is CNS depression, there is losing touch with surroundings, there is loss of self-control, and then there is violent behavior, and then nausea, unconsciousness, giddiness, loss of inhibition, that's why they can do anything, loss of control, loss of appetite, hallucinations in higher doses, and then sudden death. And we will see later that there is what's called sudden death syndrome, inhalant sudden death syndrome. It frequently happens. Maybe we will go through it now. There is loss of other toxic actions, loss of motor skills, slurred speech, tachycardia and palpitations, and sometimes bradycardia, seizures, vomiting, diarrhea, and abdominal pain. And actually, this tachycardia and bradycardia also depends on which other substances these guys are misusing. Other symptoms include dryness and redness around the mouth and nose where they inhale the substance, paints or stains on body or clothing. That's actually, they give this as warning signs to parents to find out if their sons and or daughters started to misuse inhalants. So there is dryness and redness around the mouth and nose, paints or stain on body or clothing, chemical breath odor, drunk and dizzy, and sneezing, coughing, wheezing because of the chest irritation, excessive salivation, anxiety, excitability, and irritability, suffocation, fire-related injury because these substances are very inflammable and they can cause many fires. Then coma, brain damage, and lead poisoning. Many of these products actually have lead in them for different purposes, either lead acetate or any type of lead. Sometimes they are subjected to much more quantities of lead than the normal, so they may suffer also from lead poisoning. And then there is this sudden sniffing death syndrome. This sudden sniffing death syndrome is very common among street children, and they actually lose their life at very early age because of this. And there is a certain pattern which is well known all over the world. The guy or the boy takes the last sniff and then runs for like 200 meters and then falls dead. And this is called, and there are many studies now concerning the mechanism of this sudden death syndrome. Some people that it could be arrhythmia, it could be excessive sympathetic discharge. It is still all under study. General hazards. The major hazard is that the majority of those abusers are too ignorant to know that solvent volatile abuse is harmful, about 85% in most studies. In our study, it was 92%. It is mainly among youth who are supposed to be the future of any community or society. They are cheap, available, and toxic legal substances. They lead to economic, socio-economic health and security risks. They are gateway to other addicting substances. And then there is also as I said, they gateway to other substances. Then the dealers use them to sell other substances. So they are like sub-dealers, and then they become dealers for more narcotic substances, hashish, marijuana, even cocaine and heroin in many countries. Most of the authorities and the public in many countries are unaware of this problem and its consequences. There are no strict actions are taken, no prevention, control, or treatment strategies which need for evaluation-driven, which lead to an urgent need for evaluation-driven research. There are some other harms, burning of lung, tuberculosis. They are subject to many chest, respiratory, GIT, kidney infections, blood vomiting, blackened teeth, heart constriction or contraction, of course, and aggressive behavior and violence, especially if they are street children, and the involvement in risky and criminal activities. and reducing thinking power, weight loss, weak bones because of the calcium they use. There are risk factors for those who addict this substance, including domestic violence, dictator father, divorced parents, presence of step-parents, migrant status, substance abuse in the family, any substance abuse, association with delinquent peers, and poverty. Immediately, there is rapid absorption because there is instant rush. If I think I'm going, okay, I'll skip this one, sorry. It's repeating the same thing. In our studies, we try to investigate the size and the magnitude of this problem in Upper Egypt, or the south of Egypt, in a governorate called Asyut, where I work. And we did, the study was of two parts. There was a project sponsored by Ford's Foundation. So there was a social part we did with the colleagues in the College of Arts, and then we did some other studies on pharmacological and toxicological studies. So the main purpose was to investigate the magnitude of substance abuse among street children in Upper Egypt, to track the trends and patterns of abuse among street children, and then to identify, after we did the first study, we found out that 91% of the street children misuse a substance called colla, which is a glue that's very cheap and sold everywhere. So these guys always misuse this. So we try to identify the chemical, toxicological, and neurotoxicological properties of the cheapest and most commonly abused substance, which is a glue called colla. For the data collection in the social part, we did self-report surveys, interviews, informant reports, case study methods, questionnaires, and focus group discussions. I will not go through all of this because I think I have talked enough.
Yes, 5 minutes.
5 minutes? Okay, so in the chemical and toxicological part, we studied the physicochemical properties of colla in collaboration with the colleagues in College of Pharmacy. We used the GC and the MS, and then we studied the effect of colla inhalation on locomotor activity, on motor coordination, and then we did some histopathological changes in kidney, liver, and the brain. We studied the effect on certain brain neurotransmitters, including glutamate, dopamine, serotonin, and GABA. And we studied some other CNS. Lately, we studied some. The chemical analysis of colla showed that it has 15 organic solvents in it. The one that's present in the highest quantities was toluene, which represents about 89%. Then there is xylene, pseudocumene, and cumene, ethylbenzene, hexane, pyrrolidine, and all this stuff here. I will not go through all this. This is our pharmacological studies. We designed, actually we modified a pre-designed inhalation box for the animals to be put here. Here we put the glue, and here is a fan to circulate the air, and it is a closed system, and we can calculate the amounts of the glue used and the amount of vapors being inhaled by the animal. And actually, we used also toluene as a standard drug. So we did have control group with inhalation of air, experiment group with glue, and standard group inhaling toluene. This is the effect on locomotor activity on the rotor rod by using the rotor. This is before, and this is after treatment for 10 days. This is a chronic study. We did both acute study for inhalation for 30 minutes and the chronic study inhalation for 10 days consequently. And after that we did the study that we did in the acute study. Then we studied also, this is the changes in the locomotor activity after glue inhalation in the higher concentration. Then we studied the effect on lipid peroxidation and all this. Finally, conclusions. The exact number of street children, either in Egypt or in its upper part, is still hard to determine, of course. Vast majority of street children in Upper Egypt abuse a substance called glue on habitual ways without knowing anything about its hazard to their health. Street children use glue because it is not, as I mentioned before, to break social barrier and all this. Chemical analysis of cola revealed that it contains more than 10 inhaled toxic substances. This mixture of solvents has more toxic effects than individual solvents. Toluene represents a large percentage. Other substances I talked about. Repeated daily inhalation of cola for 10 days exerted biphasic response on locomotor activity with initial depression followed by stimulation. Cola increases MDA level, which is an oxidant actually in some brain regions of cortex and cerebellum. It also leads to biphasic response on locomotor activity, stimulation followed by depression, or actually depression followed by stimulation. And thank you. I didn't go much over. Yeah. Thank you so much.